Imagine a digital landscape cluttered with thousands of fragments, essay drafts, raw datasets, lecture notes, and private journals. To scroll through it is to navigate a labyrinth of a single life, captured across dozens of disparate disciplines. The shift between subjects is immediate. One folder contains a business case analyzing the supply chain of a retail footwear model. The next contains an apocryphal poem addressed to a golden bird of war that stains the skies of heaven with blood. This entire archive was generated by Rolando Huerta during his undergraduate years at Brown University. To a casual observer, these files are just noise, but tracing the links between his political science data and his metaphysical poetry reveals a specific underlying architecture. Huerta's archive is built around a dialectic, the philosophical tension between two opposing modes of thought competing to define the same reality. The first mode is the architect. This is the empirical side of his mind, driven by statistical data, legal frameworks, and the search for observable rules. The second is the poet. This mindset favors boundlessness, romanticism, and the exploration of the infinite. We have to ask if these two modes are mutually exclusive. Can the strict logic of the architect and the boundless freedom of the poet coexist within a single worldview? The architect is visible in Huerta's political science research. For a class on campaigns and elections, he conducted a statistical breakdown of the 2008 voting demographics in Texas. This chart shows the distribution of that election. John McCain took 55.6% of the vote, defeating Barack Obama's 43.8%. The result is recorded as a set of finite, unchangeable facts. He applies this same desire for rigid structure to society itself in his notes on the legal philosophy of H.L.A. Hart. Hart defines a legal system through the rule of recognition. It's a framework categorizing human behavior into predictable systems of primary and secondary laws. For the architect, the world is a system of finite interactions. Once the boundaries are defined and the laws established, reality behaves as a predictable, structured machine. But the architect's rigid grid has edges. Logic works for an election or a contract, but it provides no data when asked to explain human mortality or the universe. In his deep studies of Immanuel Kant, Huerta confronts the thing in itself. Kant argues that we are trapped. We only experience objects through filters of space and time. The thing as it actually is remains forever beyond our reach. This limitation becomes existential in his notes on the philosopher Martin Heidegger. Heidegger describes death as an ownmost potentiality that cannot be avoided or analyzed away. It is the ultimate unknown that logic cannot solve. When the grid of logic meets the absolute limits of human perception, the framework breaks. The result is an intellectual panic that requires a different mode of survival. To process these concepts, Huerta's mind leaps into pure abstraction. Science fiction and poetry become release valves for ideas logic can no longer contain. In his story, The Apex Stone, he places his characters on the deck of the USS Enterprise, using the scale of a massive military vessel as a starting point. From there, he pushes the limits of the possible. A quantum physicist discovers an impossible artificial anomaly buried 3 kilometers directly beneath Stonehenge. In his story, he goes further, imagining a sentient singularity that has witnessed the end of the universe over trillions of years, a scale that renders traditional academic analysis impossible. These stories are philosophical sandboxes. By stripping away empirical constraints, Huerta builds spaces where he can safely interrogate concepts that break the rules of the architect. The archive contains one document that specifically addresses this internal conflict, an art history essay on the 4-dimensional vision of ancient Greco-Roman mosaics. Huerta analyzes how individual stone fragments form a single, expressive image. His thesis is that the mosaic unifies opposites, order and chaos, in the same frame. He sees the architect in the rigid borders, and the poet in the fluid lines of the central face. In the mosaic, Huerta finds a physical model for his mind. The grid doesn't suffocate the poem. It provides structure to view the infinite. Capturing reality requires both the measure of the law and the boundlessness of the abstraction. We all leave behind fragmented records of our thoughts, notes, and interests. Understanding a mind requires mapping the intersections where cold data meets creative intuition. By following these links across disciplines, the scattered fragments align into a single, cohesive architecture. This is the complete portrait of a human mind.